So good morning, everyone. And for anyone who is in a different time zone like I am, good afternoon. And welcome to the church in Ocean Park. So glad that you're here with us this morning and thinking about the people in Colorado Springs and for this Transgender Day of Remembrance. We'll start off very simply like this. Come by here, my Lord. Come by here. Come by here, my Lord. Come by here. Come by here, my Lord. Come by here. Oh Lord, come by here. Someone's crying, Lord, come by here. Someone's crying, Lord, come by here. Someone's crying, Lord, come by here. Oh Lord, come by here. Someone's dying, Lord, come by here. Someone's dying, Lord, come by here. Someone's dying, Lord, come by here. Oh Lord, come by here. Someone needs you, Lord, come by here. Someone needs you, Lord, come by here. Someone needs you, Lord, come by here. Oh Lord, come by here. Oh Lord, come by here. Oh Lord, come by here. Welcome to the church in Ocean Park.
And our friend Lex is back with us this morning, and Lex is going to do our welcome. Welcome.
Thank you. My dog Pina is with me too. We're going to do the welcome together. Hi, everybody. I'm Lex, and I'm here to welcome you to this unique multi-faith community that is dedicated to social justice. You may be wondering if you are welcome here. We are interfaith, so you're welcome if you're Jewish, if you're Muslim, if you're pagan, Hindu, Buddhist, Sikh, Christian, atheist, or some combination, or something else altogether. You are welcome if you're single, if you're married, divorced, gay, transgender, very rich, or living on the edge. We welcome those who are fidgety or very focused, those who just woke up or just got out of jail. We don't care if you're more religious than the Pope or haven't been in church since your nephew's bar mitzvah. We welcome people of all ages and abilities. We welcome soccer moms, tree huggers, latte sippers, vegans, junk food eaters. You are welcome here if you're in recovery or struggling with addiction, and if you're having problems or if you're down in the dumps. We welcome those who like organized religion and those who don't. You are welcome if you work too hard, if you don't work, if you can't spell, or if you're here because you heard that this is a strange church and you want to check it out. You are welcome if you're inked, pierced, or both. We offer a special welcome to those who could use a prayer right now or had religion shoved down your throat as a kid. You are welcome if you're a tourist, a seeker, or a doubter, or all of these. Welcome to the church in Ocean Park.
Thank you, Lex. Thank you so much. I'm Janet Goller-McKithen, and I'm the minister of this church. This morning we awakened to the news of the shooting in Colorado Springs, and I'm praying for the survivors of that shooting to somehow find healing and wholeness. Our hearts break for the families and friends. And today is Transgender Day of Remembrance, and as we remember others who have died from hate-motivated violence, let us work to build a world where this doesn't happen anymore. Let us build a world together where each authentic soul is accepted and celebrated for who they are and who they are becoming. We have work to do. May we who are bystanders repent of our silence, inaction, and indifference. Our silence enables violence and feeds hatred. As Elie Wiesel said, I swore never to be silent whenever and wherever human beings endure suffering and humiliation. We must take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. This morning is very important. It's a day of mourning and a day of joy. I'm eager to check in with a couple of our friends we haven't seen for a while, and to meet new folks as well. And the election results are mostly all final by now, so we can take a breath in and a breath out. Breathe out with gratitude for what we did get accomplished. Breathe in with the knowledge that there's more work to do. Breathe out with the gratitude that we have an awesome community to work through it with. Let's take a moment to acknowledge the land that we live on. We, the people of the church in Ocean Park, recognize that we're sitting on stolen land. In Santa Monica, we, the settlers of this land, honor the Kizh, the Tongva, and the Chumash peoples. We acknowledge the harms of genocide, enslavement, forced assimilation, gender violence, destruction of sacred sites, and the burial of historic truth about Indigenous suffering at the hands of U.S. colonial settlerism. We also acknowledge we live on a land built by the forced, unpaid labor of people stolen from Africa. We apologize for the harm and pledge ourselves to work towards the protection of sacred sites and the liberation of the people who live among us. Let's take a moment.
And as we remember the peoples of this land, and as we remember so many things that we're bringing to our time together today, so many thoughts, so many concerns, so many sorrows, and so many joys, we center ourselves as we do each week with a chant from Thich Nhat Hanh. I have arrived, I am home, in the here and in the now. And we'll chant that 3 times together. I have arrived, I am home, in the here and in the now. I have arrived, I am home, in the here and in the now. I have arrived. arrived. I am home in the here and in the now. And as we settle ourselves and focus in, we think about what we have inside of us that is so strong. And so the song called Something Inside So Strong. The higher you build your barrier, the taller I become. The further you take my rights away, the faster I will run. You can deny me, you can decide to turn your face away. No matter, 'cause there's something inside so strong. I know that I can make it. Oh, but you're doing me wrong, so wrong. You thought that my pride was gone. Oh no, there's something inside so strong. Oh, something inside so strong. Now that's the chorus. Sing that with me, that part. Something inside so strong. I know that I can make it. Though you're doing me wrong, so wrong. You thought that my pride was gone. Oh no, there's something inside so strong. Oh, something inside so strong. The more you refuse to hear my voice, oh, the louder I will sing. You hide behind walls of Jericho. Your life will come tumbling, tumbling. Deny my place in time. You squander wealth that's mine. My light will shine so brightly. Oh, there's something inside so strong. I know that I can make it, though you're doing me wrong, so wrong. Thought that my pride was gone. Oh no, there's something inside so strong. Oh, something inside so strong. Oh, brothers and sisters, when they insist we're just not good enough. Oh, well, we know better. Just look them in the eyes and say, we're going to do it anyway. We're going to do it anyway. Say again, we're going to do it anyway. Yes, we are. Going to do it anyway. Something inside so strong. I know that I can make it. Oh, but you're doing me wrong, so wrong. You thought that my pride was gone. Oh no, there's something inside so strong. Oh, something inside so strong. There's something inside so strong. Yes, there is. I know that I can make it. Oh, but you're doing me wrong, so wrong. You thought that my pride was gone. Oh no, there's something inside so strong. Oh, something inside so strong. Oh, something inside so strong. Oh, something inside so strong.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Dr. Kim Harris. We have our message in 3 parts this morning. We have 3 of our friends are going to share with us. A couple of them we haven't seen for a while, so we're very excited. The first person to bring a message is our friend Lex Ryan. Lex Ryan, pronouns he, they, is a film and TV actor, an event and portrait photographer, an abolitionist, and a founder of the DEI project Trans 101, which some of us are lucky to have taken. Lex grew up on Long Island, where they spent much of their childhood fighting off bullies and feeding an obsession with the Golden Girls. They moved to LA in 2012 to get an MFA in film and TV production from USC, and they've been here ever since, shooting, acting, and organizing around race and gender. They live with their partner Kate and dog Pina, and in their free time, they love hiking and taking frequent trips to the desert. And we're so glad to have them back. Welcome back, Lex.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I'm honored to be here. I was honored to be asked to come speak with you all. It's always good to be in community with the church in Ocean Park. I had a lot of anxiety come up when I first got the email from Janet to come speak, because I've been in a little bit of a hermity kind of place this year. And I think that fear that I felt was probably also the impetus to say yes, because I was like, this is 100% a space where I know that I don't have anything to fear, and where it is safe to sort of like be myself, and I know that I'm held and supported here. It's been a really challenging year, probably one of the hardest of my life. And that's been for a lot of reasons, a lot of loss and grief, but also because of transitioning. I've been out as trans for a few years, since about 2016, but I didn't start medically transitioning until 2020 during the pandemic. I went in December of 2019, I went on this 10-day silent meditation retreat, and it really took that amount of time and space and silence and just sitting with myself for me to really even understand what I wanted in my transition. I think for a long time I was like, I'm out socially. I don't know if I want to have any surgery, or I don't know if I want to do hormones. And it really was in the desert on this meditation retreat where it felt like this sort of divine message was just like dropped into my head. And I was like, I do want chest masculinization, and I do want to get on testosterone. And I realized like the reason that I hadn't done any of that already was because I was just so afraid of what other people would think. And, Dr. Kim, that song that you just sang is so perfect for what I wanted to communicate too, because I think that that voice that we have inside of ourselves, I think there's so many different ways that it can get quieted and get pushed down and suppressed. And I really felt that viscerally in the desert, that like, oh, wow, I had been quieting my own voice for so long and had been listening to everybody else's, that it just made me so afraid of living my authentic life and the life that I really wanted to be in. And then it was sort of like after that retreat, I was like, oh, this is going to be easy. I've got trans friends. I've got plenty of allies in my life who love me and support me. This is going to be so exciting. And then it totally knocked the wind out of me. I think like I started transitioning in 2020 and was sort of in my little cocoon because we were all in isolation during this pandemic. And then this year, I think sort of having to confront the world as this new person made me really timid and shy and like afraid of being seen. And I feel like right now in this moment, I'm in this active and ongoing process of learning how to love myself again and trust myself, and to hear that voice that I've quieted for a long time. And I think in reflecting on this last year and the work that I'm doing now, what I realized, and this felt really profound to me, given where I've been, was that it takes an enormous amount of self-love to even come out as trans. and then to go a step further and to live in the way that you really want to, in the way that feels aligned with your spirit. And so I think what I realized in that too is that there is this like bravery that is sort of built into being trans. And I think that was really important for me to recognize, that like I can quiet all these voices that are telling me that I'm wrong or that I'm bad or I'm a freak or whatever it is, and I can learn to listen to my own voice. And so on this Trans Day of Remembrance, I really hope that we can honor the courage that trans people embody. I hope that courage can inspire all of us to value and to trust and to love ourselves and our own voices that are inside. And I hope that we remember the trans people we've lost, because their lives were valuable, their lives mattered. And a world where trans people can not just survive, but also thrive, I think is a world where all of us get to thrive. And that's a world that I really want to be in. So thank you so much for having me. And I'm really grateful to be here with all of you on this day.
That's so beautiful. Thank you, Lex. Thank you. Beautiful. I get to introduce now another one of our friends, Roger Gahn, pronounced he, him, is a second-year undergraduate student at UCLA. He's a queer trans man who has been out for many years. He has also been engaged in activist and community work for a comparable amount of time. I first connected to Church in Ocean Park through anti-gun violence work in the wake of the Parkland tragedy, when this amazing group came together to form LASAC, and then we honored them at Communitas for their work. Going on to become involved with the Santa Monica Queer Prom, he led the event's coordination in 2021 and did an incredible job speaking about it at the Santa Monica Conservancy's Mosaic event that featured the Church in Ocean Park over the past summer. We welcome you back, Roger. Thanks for being with us.
Hello, thank you all so much for having me. I'm so happy to be back. I normally like prepare like a whole thing when I'm asked to speak at something, and this time I didn't, because I've been trying to be more flexible and adaptable. But I will admit that I'm of several minds about what I wanted to talk about today. Obviously, the tragedy last night is very much on my mind, especially given that it is the Day of Remembrance. And I know that the venue where it had occurred, Club Q, was preparing to host a drag brunch this morning for Trans Day of Remembrance, which is very likely part of the inspiration for the event, not inspiration, but part of the motive for what occurred. And so I want to hold space for that, but I also have nothing particularly profound or meaningful to say about it, other than that it happened and I am sad. So I'm not going to really spend more time on it. My campus, and as Janet mentioned, I'm a student at UCLA, and my campus actually also held a Trans Day of Remembrance event this past week. They've been like doing stuff over the course of the week, and they held a vigil on Thursday from 5 to 7. And I didn't go because I had other stuff going on. I was like running a different event that night, and because my expectation was, I knew there would be some speakers and there would be a few things, but my expectation was that as a vigil, it would largely be an opportunity to come and quietly mourn and think about the trans people we've lost. And while I am certainly no stranger to loss, I am grateful to say that only one of the folks I've had to bury was trans. And at the same time, the situation I had around that was complicated enough that I didn't feel like I wanted to work on it in public view, in the middle of my campus, in public view of a whole bunch of people. So I chose not to go, but several of my friends and coworkers and community members went, and they came back and told me that it was jarring, that they had listed a lot of the trans folks killed in the last year or two. And as we may remember, 2021 was a record year for this. And rather than focus on celebrating who these people had been and who we lost, and these folks in their wholeness and in their transness, the focus was instead on the graphic detail of how they were killed. And it was a very it felt like what I gathered was that it was an event that felt as if it was meant to shock and educate, while still theoretically being aimed at and catered towards trans attendees. And my biggest hang up for that is that as a trans person myself and as a member of the community, I don't believe that any of us at least feel the need to be shocked or educated on the nature of the violence against trans people. We are all very aware of it. As Lex was saying, it takes an incredible amount of bravery to come out and face that risk. And everyone you know will remind you at every opportunity how risky it is. But all the same, for all that there is a great deal of tragedy, and it is the Day of Remembrance, just like I think the vigil itself was wrong to focus on the graphicness of the death rather than celebrate those who were lost, I think that it would be wrong of me to spend this whole time talking about things that are very negative or very hard about the trans experience, because while there is a lot of pain that does come with it, the vast majority of that is externally inflicted. For trans folks who do experience dysphoria, of course, there is a certain amount of pain that comes from the internal experience of dysphoria, but that is far from all that being trans is. Sort of coincidentally, like Lex, I also came out in 2016 and medically transitioned starting in 2020. And I have, since beginning my medical transition, and especially, I've come to really explore and understand so much more about the wholeness, or about like the full scope of the trans experience, because I had known intellectually from learning from other like more senior trans activists and members of the community that, you know, the nature of trans joy and how wonderful it was and how incredible just being trans could be. These had been brought to my attention, but I couldn't really feel it when I was in high school and getting misgendered every minute of every day and just generally having a really hard time with a lot of things. But as I've been able to live more easily in myself, I've been able to explore so much more about what being trans is. And I think that my take on it is mine, and I don't want to claim to speak for everybody, especially coming from places of privilege that I do as a white transmasculine person with a lot of passing privilege who goes stealth by default. That's a very relatively easy experience as it goes for trans people. And I don't want to claim anything else. But I still want to name and honor and love the fact that being trans, I think, is one of the most beautiful and potentially even liberating experiences that there can be. Because I think that the experience of transness and of having to truly find yourself and just that degree of self-determination, and self-determination is the best word for it, is something that requires so much introspection and so much willingness to define every single thing about yourself. So not only for folks, sometimes that means picking a new name, coming up with new pronouns, vastly changing so much of how they present, how they go through the world, who they know, how people treat them. It changes a lot. And you have to decide every single layer of, okay, if this is true about me, if I've determined this, how do I want to show up that way? What does that mean? And determining, at least for myself, it was, okay, what does my version of a man look like? Because if we know that gender roles are largely societally informed, and then I know that I am a man in an inherent way, because that's how it feels for me. But I also know that a lot of concepts of masculinity are baked into social norms of gender roles, which have no biological hold on a person, as far as I'm concerned, and are often very harmful. So what does masculinity mean to me? And not having been raised in masculinity, it was like, okay, how am I going to define it real quick in my late adolescence and now in my early adulthood? And I guess actually in my early adolescence, that was terrifying. But as a young adult, it's been really incredible to be like, oh, I can be just all the best parts of a man and just cut the rest. I don't need any of that. The rest of that sucks. And I am rambling a bit here at this point. I apologize for that. But I think that there is a section of an interview I saw once with a trans activist named Alok, who is absolutely incredible, and I highly recommend their work. They're an incredible creator. And they talk about how to be trans is like to live artfully. And it's this very beautiful thing. And I'm going to butcher their quote if I try to talk about it any further. So I will not, but I just highly, highly recommend that. And I want to endorse that as much as I can, because I do believe that so much of the self-determination that comes with the trans experience is something that, I mean, I do believe cis people can access it, but I think that most don't. I think that there's a lot of just sort of coasting by default that the vast majority of people stick with. And I think that being trans forces you to not be able to do that, and then pushes you into something that is very freeing and incredible. And so on this Trans Day of Remembrance, I want to remember and mourn and love those that we have lost. And I want to remember the beauty of not only who they were, but who our trans people of today are, who our trans people will continue to be. And I remember just the beauty of what transness is. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Roger. That was beautiful, beautiful rambling. You ramble very well. Beautiful. And now I get the privilege to introduce Rachel Rose Lucky, who most of you know. She's a political activist and politician, first openly person of transgender experience to be president of the LA City Certified Neighborhood Council. She's been an outspoken advocate in the areas of low-income housing needed to combat homelessness, equitable planning and land use policies, and the use of public funds to create a municipal bank in an effort to use taxpayer money in ways that align with the city's more progressive values. She's also the first openly transgender officer of Stonewall Democratic Club and is now serving as their parliamentarian. She's currently an organizing team member of Public Bank LA, the Lafayette A Bridge Home Advisory Council, which is a facility for homeless in Koreatown, and vice chair of the Regional Community Advisory Committee at LA Care Health Plan. Rachel serves on our Church in Ocean Park Open the Doors campaign, raising funds to open our doors of our church. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you, Janet, and good morning, everyone, and good afternoon to Dr. Kim and anybody else who's not in our time zone. Yeah, I liked what Roger said, and as well as Lex. I do think that we should celebrate those that we have lost, as opposed to shock and awe. I think that, you know, given today's climate, you know, I think we know where the hate is coming from and why the numbers of transgender folks who have perished remain high, like as they do. You know, we must combat that, and it's not just aimed at the transgender community, but you know, we should combat those forces with every waking breath that we have. And I'm so thankful to the Church in Ocean Park for spearheading much of that effort, at least in our local area. And so a round of applause for the Church in Ocean Park. Traditionally, the Transgender Day of Remembrance is when we remember those who have perished in the last year since the last Day of Remembrance. And traditionally, we do that with a reading of names. And I would like to do that here now. It'll take a few minutes to get through the names. Unfortunately, there are quite a few of them. I do this in celebration of their lives. And I guess I'll just go ahead and I need to share my screen. Hang on a second. Share. All right, everybody can see that okay? Got a thumbs up, all right. And I apologize if I mess up any of these names. Usually when when the readings of the names happen, I usually get somewhat emotional. Nikaya David, December 3rd, 2021. Martina Caldera, December 6th, 2021. Zanaya Williams, December 20th, 2021. Kiana Stone, December 28th, 2021. Amelia Fernice Lionheart, December 30th, 2021. Nikki Terrietta, December 31st, 2021. Amare Lige, January 1st, 2022. Duval Princess, January 2nd, 2022. Matthew Angelo I can't pronounce that one. February 9th, 2022. Destiny Leishi, February 9th, 2022. Naomi Skinner, February 12th, 2022. Cypress Ramos, February 13th, 2022. I won't do the 2022 anymore. Paloma Vasquez, February 26th. Milo Winslow, March 3rd. Catherine Newhouse, March 9th. Elise Mallory, March 17th. Titania LaBelle, March 19th. Quinn Marari, Gustin, March 24th. Keisha Webster, March 26th. Kai Khan, March 27th. Mia Love Parker, April 1st. Ariana Mitchell, April 2nd. Fern Feather, March 12th. Ace Scott, April 15th. Kenna Lee Gillick, April 17th. Asher Garcia, April 21st. Ray Muscat, May 8th. Ruby Tavernier, March 9th. Michelle S. Terrio, May 10th. Sasha Mason, May 13th. Nedra Sequence Morris, May 14th. Maddie Hoffman, May 19th. Maddie Dixon, May 20th. Dee Dee Hall, May 26th. Chanelica Dior Hemingway, May 31st. Rexy Q, June 3rd. Paris Rich, June 13th. Brazil Johnson, June 15th. Shalmani McClam, June 21st. Kitty Monroe, June 29th. Cherry Bush, June 6th, or July 6th. Jasper Aaron Lynch, July 7th. Jimmy J. Lee, July 8th. Marticia Richmond, July 11th. Toy Davis, July 16th. Keisha Chanel Geeter, July 20th. Camilla Maria Swan, also known as Dee Dee, July 25th. Hayden Neva Davis, July 25th. Maricela Castro, July 29th. Kimbella Kimball, August 6th. AC D. Morrison, August 21st. Dee Dee Ricks, August 27th. Regina Allen, also known as Maya, August 29th. Simaj Sincere Billingsley, September 21st. Serena Brenneman, September 24th. And that was just here in the United States. Worldwide, it's 390, I believe, the line in the way, but worldwide. And I just wanted to do that. Like I said, traditionally, that's what we do at a normal TDOR event. And it helps to remember that these were real people. And you could see from the pictures that they had vibrant lives. And to me, it's just pure evil. Pure evil. What these people have done to our trans siblings. And so I have a hard time looking at the pictures. I can see the fullness of their lives. And I think it was Lex that said, or maybe it was Roger, that that is more about a celebration of lives than how they perished. And so I thought that that Amazing Grace would be the song to sing today for this. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. This grace that brought my safe, me safe this far, and grace will lead me home. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
Amen. Thank you, Rachel. Let's take a moment in silence, just a moment. Give thanks for the courageous people who are no longer with us, and the courageous people who are with us, and those that are right here with us in community. We give thanks for all. Thank you so much. We have now a time of community sharing. So if you have something to say or you have a question to ask, you could raise your hand in the Zoom way, which is go down to your reaction button. And on there it says raise your hand and push that button. That's the best way. Or if you do this, we might see you. So this is a brief statement or a question. And now the people who spoke, if you'd like to respond, you can, but you don't need to. Craig. You're muted.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Thank you again. As the people that were speaking were listening, I was reminded about, the hatred. And some of that hatred was exhibited less than 24 hours ago. And I know as one who has been victimized by that utter hostility towards me personally, I've always thought about what it is I need to do in order to survive so I can coexist in such an environment that doesn't treat me humanely or with any sensitivity. And so I asked that question of you, you three. Have you, one, thought of that, and what is it that you hold most dear in terms of plotting a humane and organic future in terms of survival for yourselves, if you can share that?
For myself, when I first started my transition in 2013, it was the following year that I got involved with Stonewall Democratic Club, and I decided that I wanted to be a voice. I wanted to be present as somebody who has who's living a transgender experience. To me, the best way to combat this hatred is to be ever present and not back down. Not back down. For a long time, I had on my Facebook cover, I will always speak out and I will never back down. And running for office and all of the things that I've tried to do, I feel like being visible is the best. When I first started out, let me put it this way: when I first started out, only 11% was the number. 11% of Americans had ever met a transgender person. That number, the last I heard, is upwards of a third. at this point. And to me, that's meaningful. That's meaningful. And to be visible in the media and to be visible in the community. You know, and the other example I would give is the new Quantum Leap. There's a genderqueer character there, and they're being portrayed as somebody who is highly, highly intelligent, as opposed to the way transgender folks were portrayed in the media in the decades previous, which was always as the prostitute or the messed up drag queen or whatever. But you know, I think that these kinds of things help propel tolerance. And the last thing I'll say is that my recent reading of the election that just happened, more youth came out to vote in this election than any time previous. And they are, without a doubt, the most tolerant generation. I think that we can say, you know, call this generation, you know, or the last couple of generations, the young folks as being the tolerant generation, and hopefully that will prevail in the decades to come. I hope that answers your question, Craig.
Thanks. Oh, Dr. Lovejoy, you have a question. Go ahead, Lucille.
Yes.
Dr. Lucille.
Yes, okay. I wanted to, I guess I'll direct this to Lex. Lex, you look comfortable sitting up there. I think I'll ask you a question. Lex, how do you, my daughter brought me a little copy of a book that says, I have two mommies. And I'm grateful for that, you know. But I want to know, how do you teach your children at an early age? Because I believe, and I might be wrong about this, every family has a transgender in their families. Now, they may not want to own up to it, but and I say own up like that because that's the way it feels. But I believe that most families have, through the generations or even now, have transgender people in them. How do you answer something like that, Lex?
Yeah, thanks for that question. You know, I think I was thinking about this also. I'm not remembering, was it, who asked the last question? I can't see all the names.
Craig Ali.
Oh, Craig. Okay, I was thinking about this with your question too, Craig. Just how I think one of the most profound realizations I've had in the last few years is how interconnected all of our struggles really are. Like, I started doing activism in an anti-racist space, and so for me, it was like very much about being an organizer in that space and learning how to talk to white people about race. And in doing that work, I realized like that's how I even came out as trans, was like being part of that community. And I think like over the years that has become more and more cemented for me, that a world where any marginalized community gets to thrive, I think, is a world where all of us get to thrive, because we have the same needs, right? Like, we all need housing, we all need healthcare, we all need good food to eat, we all need love, and we all need support. And so I think when I think about talking to kids, I don't have kids of my own. I have lots of young little cousins, and but I think that probably the way that I would think about creating sort of a world where it's not just like I think my initial thought was like, oh yeah, sure, we have to educate kids about transness, but I think it's even more than that. It's like creating the space for kids to experience the fullness of themselves without shame. And I think that you know, can be applied in any way around any part of our identities. So I think like the sort of like explicit education is really important, where we're talking about, you know, these are the particular issues that trans people face, or that disabled folks face, or the Black folks face. Like, these things are really important, I think, to get specific about it. And beyond that, I think it's really, when I think about kids, it's just like, how much space can we give them? How much room can they have to like really be their whole selves? And how can we sort of shut off our own voices of judgment or shame or fear when we encounter, you know, parts of kids' identities that are surprising or new to us. I hope that makes sense and answers your question.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Lex.
Yeah.
Jean. Oh, go ahead, Roger. I'm sorry. Roger, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to add to that if I could. Lex, you put that really well. And I think that a huge part of it is making sure that, you know, we give kids that space. I also think if I understood your question correctly, Lucille, that part of it was just as simply just about when there is a trans person that a kid knows, or they may notice that something is changing or that something seems different to what they're used to or expecting, how do you explain that to them? Is that part of what you were asking? We can't hear you, Dr.
Yes,
Lucille.
I'm trying to figure out how do you, I think there are trans in every family. That's the basic question I am asking. Do you believe that?
I have no idea. I know that in the community, sometimes we joke about how there's always at least one trans cousin or something, but I don't know that I actually believe that in any given like moment that every single family has at least one trans person, but it also depends on how far out you're willing to expand your definition of family. Because if you think it's just one household, then yeah, probably not all of them. But if it's everyone in the family, then yeah, sure. So I think that I guess I'm not going to say a hard yes or no, but I do think that everyone's going to encounter trans people.
All right, and thank you, Roger.
And if I could just for 1 second, I'm sorry, but also realizing that gender is a spectrum, and you know, depending on where you lie on that spectrum, you know, and again, what Roger said, you know, expanding out the definition of transness, of being transgender, I think that, you know, most people don't stick to a strict male or female binary, and that we sometimes overlap in those gender roles and what some people might call gender bending. And so, you know, maybe to that, if it's that kind of thing, then yeah, I would say that, you know, everybody falls on that spectrum somewhere and has some amount of transness within them, unless they are hard male or hard female. And so that's what sprang to mind.
Yeah, I mean, I would just think that, like Rachel was saying, gender is a spectrum, presentation is a spectrum. Whether one identifies as trans or not is an entirely internal choice. But I think that as long as because I do work a lot with kids. And so I think that as far as explaining it to them goes, as long as we're making sure that they have as much, like Lex was saying, freedom and space to understand themselves and explore who they want to be and how they want to show up, that's really key. And just when they're like, hey, I have a question about this. Like when I came out, I had younger cousins that, like second and third cousins, that my family had to try to explain this to. And I think that trying to run from it with kids or trying to treat it like it's a dirty secret or a thing that's like only for adults is a major issue that's been obviously coming up a lot in our current media in the last year or two. But I think that it's just a perfectly natural thing that can be explained as like, hey, sometimes people realize that they want to live this way or that way. And sometimes, you know, we assign certain labels to people when they're born so that we can do X, Y, and Z. And some of that's good and some of that's bad. And sometimes people realize those labels don't fit. And so they try out different things. And just talking through that and being like, yeah, this person, like, I remember I had to explain it as like, shortly after coming out, I like ran into some of my grandparents' neighbors, including like this old woman who was not stoked about finding out that I was trans, and her grandchildren who were like 7. And they saw me and I mentioned that I had realized that I was a boy. And weeks later, I saw them again and the old woman misgendered me. And her grandson was like, oh no, remember, because he said he realized he was a boy. And it was that easy for him. He got it immediately. He had no problem with it. He thought it was great. She looked so pissed that he had remembered this and now knew this could happen. And so I just kept walking home. But these are things that I think are accessible to kids.
That's great. Thank you so much. Jean?
I wanted to thank all 3 of you. It's so wonderful for you to come speak to us and to speak out in the world. I taught teens for more than 30 years and I'm still tutoring them. And secrets are the worst thing for a human being to have to keep a secret about yourself. And I really mourn for the people. Thank you, Rachel, for showing us all of those photographs and saying their names. I think that's really important to remember people. But what I wanted to say in response to what Roger and Lex just said about talking to children is that my kids went to, well, actually one of them went to Play Mountain Place, where Hurley Jim was my son's teacher and Gail was the head of the school for a while. And it was a place where we just talked with kids in a matter-of-fact way about whatever. Some kids had 2 dads, and some kids had 1 dad and no mom. And it was just a natural thing to talk about. And in particular, I'm thinking about my own son, who is now over 35. I keep forgetting how old he is. And his wife is not as, it's not as easy for her to talk about things in a matter of way. And their cat died recently. And he died during the night, and they scooped him up and got rid of the body as fast as possible so that the kids wouldn't have to suffer. Well, the kids were going to suffer anyway, right? And I'm remembering a day at Play Mountain when there was a little clutch of kittens. I don't remember the word for the little, the litter of kittens. Died, all of them, all at the same time. They were preemies, all of them. Anyway, the teachers laid out the bodies of these little kittens and talked about it with the children all day long. The life went out of their bodies, and you remember their spirits and the wonderful light in their eyes when they were alive, and now they're not. It was very matter of fact. And it was a wonderful place to be. It was a lot like Church in Ocean Park. And I'm hoping for the world that we can turn the world into Play Mountain Place. Thank you. Thanks to all of you.
Thank you so much. We'll go to Chuck. Go ahead, Chuck.
Hi, I'm Chuck. I'm a rather typical male. I'm 85 years old. I want to say something very personal. I don't know how to get beyond the pain, the grief of knowing that the injustice has been done to so many of these people. The pictures, the number of suicides and people shot and stabbed, and that'll stay with me. And coupled with that is the anger. And I don't know how I can get through the pain or the anger and be more effective as an instrument, as a person who's capable of affecting those around me with some sort of awareness of this injustice. As a typical male, I don't cry a lot, but I feel tears. They're there. They should be coming out, and they're not. But I want you to know that I love all of you, and I love the trans people and every one of them. And if I felt more strength, I would be out there doing something, God knows what. But I think I could find, if I can get beyond the anger and the pain, maybe I will find something that I can do in a more practical sense to change the world. Thank you.
Chuck, I just want to say that there's time for all of that. There's time for what you're doing. There's time for activism, but not all at once. We do what we do. And you have a beautiful heart. So thank you.
Janet, if I may, just right quick. This thought came to me earlier before the service. And just like with, Black Lives Matters and things like that, where, we're taught that it's not enough to just not be racist. It's more about being anti-racist. And, you know, to speak to what Chuck was saying, I think that we can take that thought and apply it to all of our marginalized communities, including the transgender community. And, you know, just like I said, you know, my efforts are to stand up and be visible. You know, it also takes, you know, because the trans community in the United States is approximately 1.5 million people out of 300 some odd million people. And so we need our allies desperately. So anytime you stand up, that's helping right there. Just stand up and be an ally.
Thank you. I also like to remind people that activism to me is sort of like an orchestra. Like sometimes you're going to take a break. Sometimes you're the violin, but the drum's drumming and you can step back and then you get back in. And that's why we're a community of activists. And so whatever you know, we do it as a community, but definitely allies are important in every situation. But Craig, we have time for one brief comment.
Yeah, Rachel more or less hit upon what I was going to say. I'll just say this: there is no downside in terms of standing up for one another based on differences. And I'll close it with this. If they came for you at 6 o'clock this morning, you better believe they're coming for me at 6 o'clock this evening.
Thank you. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate all this vulnerability and the sharing and the discussion that we had. And now I have the opportunity to introduce a friend of mine, Mia Yamamoto. Mia Yamamoto is a Japanese-American transgender woman. She is a practicing criminal defense lawyer and community activist for the Asian American and LGBTQIA communities. She has founded and led numerous bar associations and human rights campaigns. She is a founding member of International Bridges to Justice, which is dedicated to serving and defending prisoners in the Far East, the Middle East, Central Asia, Africa, and South Asia. She and I have run into each other at various actions and events. Welcome, Mia Frances Yamamoto. There she is. Oh, you're muted. You're muted, Mia. Mia, you're muted. There you go.
Teacher man, don't tell me my life is ruled by my birth. I know you don't know what life is really worth. Not all that glitters is gold. Half the story has never been told. Now you see the light. Stand up for your rights. Get up, stand up. Stand up for your rights. Get up, stand up. Don't give up the fight. Most people think gender descends from the sky. You can't change anything. Might as well not even try. But if you know what life is worth, you'll take the change right here on earth. Now you see the light. Stand up for your rights. Get up, stand up. Stand up for your rights. Get up, stand up. Don't give up the fight. Sick and tired of your isn't and your chance and game. I'm dying to go to heaven with a female name. We know because we understand. I am a woman who was born a man. You can fool the people sometimes. but you can't fool all the people all the time. Now you see the light. Stand up for your rights. Get up, stand up. Stand up for your rights. Get up, stand up. Don't give up the fight. Don't give up the fight. Don't give up the fight.
Thank you, Mia. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Can't
everybody.
wait till we can see you. Pardon?
Say it again.
We love you. Thank you to all the speakers. I just love all the things that were said there. It was great to be a part of this program.
Wonderful. Thank you for being here. We can't wait to see you in person. All right.